Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to another webinar provided by Infragistics. The topic of today's webinar is the impact of rich interactivity on the user experience. My name is Tobias Komischke. I'm the Director of User Experience here at Infragistics. And I'll walk you through my thoughts on rich interactivity. I studied that UX stuff, and I have a couple of years experience in the area of UX. I worked in research, I worked in development, I worked in all kinds of consulting, in-house, external. And if you've witnessed another webinar of mine, this is always the first thing that I show, this little comic here of the poor guy that finds himself on a strange planet talking with a strange alien. This is the first thing I've ever seen about the topic of user experience. And, I just kept that slide because I think it really talks a lot towards what we try to accomplish and what we try to avoid in UX design. So this alien here asks, think back, which keys did you press? Which is a very interesting scenario here. I'm sure everybody of us had this moments where we've been into an application and then at some point we got lost and we didn't know where we came from, we didn't know what screen we were on, what that screen was actually all about, and what I can do to actually get closer to my target completion. And so this scenario here of this guy not knowing what's going on is exactly what we want to avoid in UX design. But obviously we don't only want to avoid that, we want to provide a really good experience. Now, I work in our services group of Infragistics. I'm heading the UX team. And what we do there is obviously we work directly with customers. So we do training, we do consulting, we build UIs, we spec UIs, we review UIs. And it's very interesting that, for example, when we are about to start a new UI design project and we talk about requirements, we talk about those abilities that the system shall have, we talk about users and their needs and characteristics, hardly any time do we actually talk about rich interactivity and animations. And the reason for that is obviously that those are non-functional requirements. They are typically not spec'd out. It's just something that is, expected. Well, make it as good and, pleasant for the user as possible. But as I will show you now in this webinar, the power of rich interactivity on the user experience can be really high if we use it in a conscious way, and not just because we can, because all those tools nowadays support a lot of rich interactive features. And so when I talk about rich interactivity, I actually don't talk about this thing here, which is something that just blinks for no apparent reason, just drawing attention and trying to tell you that you are the lucky guy who won something and wants you to animate to go somewhere else. I also don't talk about creating experiences like this one here. This is a real-life example of my own life. When about 2 years ago, I got a new company smartphone, Galaxy, Samsung Galaxy. And, I didn't read the manual like most people, and I just assumed it would work after, I set it up and, hooked it up to my accounts and all that stuff. But it turns out that the very first day, every single call I got went into the voicemail. Why? Because I couldn't pick it up. I just was not able to. And here's kind of what happened the whole day. Phone rings. I try to pick it up. Okay, maybe the other one? No? Oh, okay. So recalling what happened, I got a call and I had two UI elements to engage with. One was green and was on the left side of the screen, and one was red and was on the right side of the screen. So, assuming color stereotypes that green is something that's good and positive and red is something negative, I try to engage with the green button on the left. But what happened, and I will play the video in a second again for you to review, but what happened was when I tapped on the green button, the right button to pick up that call, the other button on the other side of the screen, the red button, started to wiggle. So it's a rich interactive feature, and because it reacts towards my interaction with the UI here. But why did the red button wiggle? Something that wiggles, and I just showed you this with this, you are the 10,000th visitor and you want something. Something that wiggles and blinks and flashes draws attention. And so I looked to the right to find out why was the other one wiggling. Maybe I actually tapped on the wrong one. So I actually tapped now on the red button on the right side, which causes now, again, the green button on the left side to wiggle. So every time I tap somewhere, the other side wiggles. And so I didn't know what to do. And then obviously, it took me literally a day to understand that it's not a tap gesture that's expected here, but a slide gesture. Let me just play this again so you can review what I just talked about. Get the call. I try to engage left, the right wiggles. I engage on the right, the left wiggles. And only when I slide it inward do I answer the call. But it literally took me a day. It was pretty embarrassing for me. And I felt that was not the right way to use rich interactivity features. Now contrast that with an iPhone where it does things like this. If I try to tap here on this one icon with the camera, it shows something. And what it tries to do is it anticipates the movement that I should do. See, it slides everything a little bit up, saying this is the movement that you should carry out. If I swipe it up, it would go to my camera mode. What it also does is, look at the this button here, these waves that go from left to right. This is another anticipation of what I'm supposed to do, which is slide inward. So that kind of anticipation animation was basically what was missing on this example here, because nothing happened here. It didn't show me what I should do. Instead, it drew all my visual attention to the other element that was completely irrelevant in this situation. And so 2 examples with the similar scenario. I want to engage with my smartphone. One phone showed me, guided me on what to do. The other one didn't, and actually more confused me about what to do because it was stressing irrelevant things. So that's just as an intro, a little bit about the good, bad, and ugly of rich interactivity. And right now, since in the UX community, we've been talking for years about what can we do with rich interactivity now that all those tools support it. Is it just a nice eye candy feature set? Is it something that we can use to really substantially improve the user experience or not? It seems now that that whole topic gets a little bit more prominent. For example, as evidenced by this article here on the industry that talked about the 13 design trends for this year, 2013. And number 3 on that list was to use animation as affordance. So just as an explanation of that term, affordance is basically the quality of the UI so that it indicates to you and shows to you that you can interact with it. So affordance is basically the message, you can interact with me. Obviously then we need to get a little bit more subtle. In what way can you interact with me? Because I think the Galaxy, it was clear that you can engage with those buttons, but it was not clear how. So seems to be a very trending topic now, even in the mainstream, that we can use rich interactivity features, animation being one of them, to enrich and to optimize the user experience. And we've been knowing this for a long time, way before we were talking about computer user interfaces. For example, Disney Studios, character animation principles that had been known for 70 years included, knowledge about how do we animate cartoons, which are just static images, in a way that, when we play them one after the other, we actually show different characteristics of a natural scene in a way that the whole cartoon looks even more realistic. So there are things like squash and stretch, anticipation. Before a user carries out an action, you have to prepare some things. For example, you bend your knees. Or here, it's very clear from this cartoon of Donald Duck here that he's about to start, moving towards the right. This is an anticipation here that's shown that really makes it more apparent even before the action starts. And then, a couple of other principles. I don't really want to dig too much into them. I'm just trying to say that these principles have been around for a while, and I think they can be used and they are used in animations also on UIs. And in fact, tools support these things. So for example, when we talk about squash and stretch, there are tools obviously out there that allow you to bounce and have elastic easing on that. So they really support those kinds of principles. But those are way older than the whole topic of user interface design. And so when we talk about that history of richness, it is a rich history in that it started with desktop applications. And obviously when they came out with graphical user interfaces, they were revolutionary. They were, back then in the 80s, they were kind of rich because you had direct object manipulation. You had, for example, things like drag and drop, where you could drag a file icon from one folder to another, and that would just copy that file. So it had interactive applications and features. Obviously, looking at this from today's perspective, it was really rudimentary back then. And then once the browsers and the web, the World Wide Web, were introduced, at the beginning, we only had those static web pages. They actually didn't do anything. They just had lists of content. There was nothing to them, but you could share all these things globally through the internet. I'm thinking, Mosaic browser and that kind of stuff. So when was that? Early 90s, I guess. So static web pages, not too much going on. Definitely not rich in interactivity. But then what happened was that the web grew very, very fast because there was so much potential to be earned. Marketing really very soon understood the power of the internet in spreading the messages around on certain things. So it got much more interactive, much more rich, very, very fast. And then we had all those plugin-based technologies, with Flash and Java to actually provide more multimedia, more direct interactions, more animations on even a web browser. And then at some point, the term RAA was coined, rich internet applications, that actually felt like really contemporary desktop applications in what you could do with them, what they could show, how they would behave. But they were actually all running in browsers. They were all based on internet technology. And so this again then had an influence back on the desktop world, because obviously the desktop world didn't sleep either. Also the desktop world became more interactive and more rich, especially things that are more subtle now, things like fading, sliding, transitions that were now there. So where today you can basically say there's hardly any difference in how UIs are portrayed on a desktop or on a browser, especially since you can run browser applications out of browser also. And so it's pretty much aligned right now. But it has taken a while to get to such a richness. And obviously now we have in our tools that we use to design and to code and implement those applications, websites, and apps, all those capabilities to be very rich. The question is, what do we do with them? Me, I'm a psychologist by training, and so I tend to bring in some, cognitive psychology content into my webinars, hopefully for your benefit, because if you think about, in the end, what is it that a UI should accomplish? What is it that makes a user experience a good experience? It's basically supporting a user in accomplishing something that he or she wants to accomplish. And there are many, many different models that describe human behavior and what happens there, and the sequence of planning and action, all these things. This one here is a very simplistic one. It's called the TOAD model. TOAD as in test, operate, test, and exit. So that's basically what at any point in time a user would have to go through on a UI of the system that maybe you are building. So the first T talks about test. And here are all these sub-bullets for each of those phases here. Test means that at the beginning, when I'm exposed to a UI, I have to assess my situation. It's exactly the same as this guy on the planet that talks with this alien and doesn't know where and why he ended up. So the test here at the beginning is I need to perceive my status. I need to get an orientation. So where am I? Where am I in this application? Am I on a start screen? Am I on some detail screen already? The same thing we could translate onto a web site. If I had Googled for some search string and Google brings me right into a website, not on the start screen, but on some detail screen, where am I? Am I on the right page? What is it that I see on that page? Is it what I need to do to actually accomplish what I started to do? So I wanted to start looking for information on maybe a good trip to Southern America. On that website that I am, do I actually see that information? So all this is about perceiving status and then understanding the status. And these are two separate things. Perception basically means just to see, is there any indication as to where am I? Is there a label? Is there a logo? Is there any kind of text telling me or allowing me to assess where I am? The understanding of that is the next step, where based on this information that I see or perceive, I come to the conclusion, yes, this is exactly where I need to be. From here on, I can go further about solving my issue at hand. Or maybe where I landed here is not where I need to be. And so you can only do this by comparing that status that you see with the goal that you had in your mind, because you know what you want to accomplish. I know that I want to find out about a tourist trip to Peru or something. And comparing the status with that goal, I see that there needs to be something to be done. I plan my operation. Now, that operation can be to follow along. Maybe there's a big fat button that says, click here for the greatest tours to Southern America. But maybe if I'm on the wrong page here, my operation would be that I need to go back to Google, or I have to go back to the home page of this site. So I need to plan what I do next. And this is done through the help of anticipating the outcome, because I have an expectation as to what is the outcome of my planned operation. So this model here looked so trivial, right? Oh yeah, it's test, operate, test, and exit. Yeah, how much easier can it get? But if you look at what is involved in each one of those four main steps, it's quite involved. And what I try to show is that rich interactivity can help with all of those steps here in this model. So when I actually operate, so now I know that I have to do something, I planned my operation, I have an expectation as to the outcome. Operation means now that I need to initiate something that I do, some activity. I have to monitor that operation or activity. So I have to see, does it actually, do something? Is it what I want to do? Does it actually accomplish something? And then obviously I have to end the operation. And after that, I basically go back and do the same thing as I did before, which is now that I did something, what's my status? How does it relate to the goal that I have in my mind? What next should I do to get even closer to my expected outcome? And then either, since this is iterative, either I have done and accomplished what I wanted to do, and then I can exit this this flow and reorient myself maybe to the next thing I want to accomplish. Or if I'm still not there here in this phase, I have to go back and do another operation. So it's a this most simplistic of all the cybernetical models out there. But let's look at all of these a little bit more in detail and see how rich interactivity may help with them. So here are the benefits of providing rich interactivity for your users. And again, we have a lot of tools out there that all are very strong and powerful in allowing you to create rich interactivity. And let's see for what reason. One reason is to provide a direct manipulation. And this has been out there for quite a while. I will not talk too much about that one, but it just means direct manipulation. You work with the object that you see. So, the popular example, an application that shows you maybe the globe of, planet Earth. And now, if you are in Tokyo, Japan, and the globe shows you right now Central Europe, somehow you want to get that globe to spin that you see in Japan. For whatever reason, doesn't matter. So direct manipulation means I see the globe, I know where Japan is, I want to rotate that globe like I would do that on a real physical globe in my living room. As opposed to finding another screen somewhere through my menu hierarchy, and that screen would allow me to enter some X, Y, and Z coordinates to manipulate and to rotate my globe. So if you can do something directly, you should allow your users to do that, and that's one way of a rich interactivity, because it's direct object manipulation. The next one is keep users on the same screen. This is becoming more and more interesting and important, since we now have very rich and powerful applications on smartphones, both native and browser-based. So we have basically the whole world knowledge available to us at any point in time through the internet. But now you're talking about sharing some of that information, a subset, with users on a very small real estate. We talk about 3.5 to 5 inch screens on a smartphone. And so the effect of that is that you typically have to spread out the contents through more subpages, but you still want to keep it very shallow, otherwise the user gets lost. And so keeping users on the same screen is enabled by, for example, rich interactivity features such as animating things to the background, to the side, and bring them out again. So for example, having a slide out or a fly out menu that you can bring in from the side only if and when you need it to do certain things like navigating to something or showing or hiding something, and then you can get rid of it again. But you know where it is. So the feeling here is not that you go from one discrete screen to another screen, but the experience is that you work on the same screen. You don't lose your orientation. You keep seeing what you need to see. You just blend in more information as needed. And I remember BMW at one time when they introduced the iDrive, which is their car infotainment system UI paradigm. They had the experience that this car infotainment system was obviously very powerful because it included all the entertainment aspects of radio, CDs, the whole navigation system for car navigation, information about the state of the car, obviously, with maintenance intervals and all this. All those things were shown on a relatively small screen real estate. And feedback from this first generation of users of the 7 Series BMW indicated that people had really a hard time to browse and navigate through this hierarchy of screens because there were tons and tons of screens, and they were all shown like one after the other. Doing this while driving is not very straightforward. So what BMW was doing was looking into more concepts on how to keep the user on the same screen on a perception level. So saying that the experience is that, oh, I'm always on the same kind of screen. I know what to do, even though I see different content. And the way they try to do that, and I'm not sure if they ever, implemented that. Unfortunately, I don't have a 7 Series BMW. But the way they try to do this is through animations. So when you go from one screen and you hit, for example, on the home screen, I want to go now into navigation. That home screen would animate to the upper right corner and would get smaller, and then you would see on the appearing screen then your entry point to the navigation. So by doing that, they made it very apparent where things went and where things go and can be retrieved, just supporting the user in understanding what goes on. And I will show you examples of this just in a second. I want to basically focus more on these other two main bullets. One that says educate users, and the other one entertain the user. For educating the user, this is all about guiding a user through the UI and providing a good experience. We have 3 different phases of a user interacting with the UI, and it maps to this model that I just showed to you. One is the invitation phase. This is, we want to show to the user that something can be done. This is this affordance quality that I talked at the beginning of the webinar. Invitation means, here I show you what you can do. It's kind of separating the signal from the noise on the UI. We have sometimes a lot of noise on the UI that shows things that are not directly needed. It's a lot of Chrome and infrastructure things, while it can be hard to then see what is actually the vital elements on my UI. What is my data? What are the functions that I can do? So showing that something can be done means show those UI elements that you can interact with and you are supposed to interact with more prominently. And how this is done, I'll show you in a second. The next phase then is, while something is in progress, actually show that something is being done. We all know those systems where, you trigger something that takes a while, maybe some hardcore processing or some loading, and you have no feedback as to, well, did it actually take my input to do something, or is it actually doing something already, or has this thing actually crashed and stalled? Showing progress means show that something is being done, and this is also a kind of feedback, which is the third bullet here. Feedback meaning something has been done. Every action the user does on the UI should result in a feedback. Now that feedback can be subtle and nuanced, or it could be bold and strong, but you want to provide a feedback. And I just realized here, I didn't say feedback, but feedback. It's a nice one. So all these 3 things help to educate the user, and not in a condescending way that, oh, we need to educate the user because he's dumb. No, it's educating user in a sense of, we try to make things transparent. We try to show you, even before you interact with an element, what elements are actually interactive. While you interact with something, we try to make things transparent by showing you the progress. We show how things now are being done once you work with an UI element. And after the action, we want to make things transparent in showing you the feedback. Yes, you did something, and here's the result of it. So let's look at an example. We have a very prominent and popular patterns explorer called Quince. If you're interested into UX patterns and how you can make them happen programmatically, just Google for Quince and you will find it. But at one time, for version 1, it looked like this. Today it looks differently because we obviously keep optimizing and improving on it. But it did look like this, where in the end we show here at the center a column that allows you different access points to find a certain pattern. So, you can look at all patterns. You can basically look at patterns that map to different user tasks. You can look at tags by their relationships to other tags. And you can look at patterns that are offered for specific prototypical screens. And then there's also a search here if you know the name of a pattern, just want to filter all patterns based on some search string. And so I hope that this little movie that I'm going to play in a second streams well. But what will happen is I will show how you hover over those different categories here and how those react towards that hover, saying, no, this affordance character, yes, you can click me, because if you hover, I react, I live, so consider clicking me. And then what the video will also show is this center pillar, once I selected one of those access points here, will kind of dissolve, and the search will move to the top right, while the other 4 access points will move to the left in an animated way. And we did this in an animated way just to, again, make it transparent where things went, so that if you want to get them back, because now you decide to search for a pattern, you know where to look for the search. So let's look at this. Hopefully you can see this well. I hover, and they all react. They all say, I'm alive. Here's what you get when you click me. I click on one, and you saw that the search went on the top right, and the other guys went here under one consolidated flyout on the left. So you saw where things went to, so you know how to access them. And now another feature here, I will bring the mouse pointer closer to this Explore flyout that hosts the other 4 access points, and see what this Explore flyout does. Here, even before I actually hover physically over it or even click directly on it, it already starts to wiggle out a little bit. We call this magnetism, because it's like the principle that the flyout is attracted to the mouse pointer here, and it's a very nice way to again show, even before I actually bring this out or click on it, that there's something hidden and it actually lives. So that's talking about both the invitation character and the feedback character of the previous slide. Now let's look at another example. At one point, we came up with a new UI paradigm that was geared towards managing lots of complex screen content when you only have a very small or limited form factor. And this is now today in our product line, we call it Tile Manager. But back then, when we were developing this and thinking about what the UX should be here, we had these kind of proof of concepts. So that's why they don't look like anything real, because they are not real. They're just proof of concepts. But I will play you now 2 segments of doing the same thing, and you let me know which one is actually understandable, because I will not explain to you how this works. You have to figure this out by just watching this video. So see how easy to understand this one is. Aha. I click. It does something. Okay. Okay. So did you understand this? Again, without explanation, it's not very easy to really follow what's going on here. I mean, I clicked here on some of those tiles, and then the color changed, and I got smaller tiles on the right, and I then clicked on others on the right, and then again colors and numbers changed. So usually the experience of people who don't know this paradigm is they don't quite understand this the first time around. But what happens if we now introduce animation? I do the same thing, but now instead of having binary transitions, we actually animate things. Let's see how this flies. Okay. I click. Okay. The one that I clicked grows large. The other one grows small and goes back in line. And then I can bring them all back again. Wasn't that so much easier to understand what goes on? And think about now your end users. I assume, most of, you guys who watch this webinar, you are developers, you are UI guys, you are UX designers, and, you may be familiar with that kind of pattern, and you may even thought that the first segment here with the binary transitions was completely clear. But think about your users that may, for the first time, experience that kind of UI paradigm. And do you think they have an easier time to understand things with animations or without animations? My bet is that the animations fly better. And obviously, you can set all kinds of properties for this animation. You can make this animation faster or slower. You can change the acceleration or the deceleration of those movements here. There's a lot of things you can set. But my point here is that this is, again, showing transparency. It's rich interactivity being portrayed in a way that makes it easier for users to understand what goes on. And now I have some examples of something that always has been so trivial that it wasn't even spec'd out normally when you had a new design concept, and that's the drag and drop feature. Drag and drop has been there on UIs forever, and forever meaning since we had graphical user interfaces, because they had drag and drop from the beginning. So drag and drop is something, basically we grew up with, we know this in and out, and that's why typically there was no need to describe in a spec how this drag and drop should really work in detail, because there was not too much variance in it. This one here is its typical definition. Drag and drop is the feature that you can provide to a user where he or she can drag a visual element across the screen and drop it in another location. So what else would I say about this? This is drag and drop. Well, nowadays with the richness in interactivity that tools allow us to do, we can be much, much more subtle, much more nuanced in what a drag and drop can be. So look at all those event states that I can use for my drag and drop. The mouse hover, mouse down, and then I have all these states of the drag itself, the initiation, differentiating between a valid and an invalid target, my original location. Do I accept the drop? Do I reject the drop? Meaning if I'm on the target zone or not, what do I do? I have all those kind of actors that I can bring to the table. So Bill Scott here, who was one of the first who wrote about that specific example here 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago almost, said, there's about 40 combinations that actually make sense between event states and the interaction actors. Obviously, not all of those combinations make sense. But now you, as a designer, you have now a lot of decisions because you can do so much, but what actually makes sense? And I just have some examples again to show different ways to do a simple drag and drop. Here we have some photos of women that for some reason I want now to drag and drop one or more from the top here to the bottom. That's called my lightbox. And so just for example, the way this could be done, and it's not the only way, is this. Okay, I grab it, and you see this earthquake line saying I'm in transition, I'm not done yet. You also see that the mouse pointer changes into this traffic sign which says don't drop it here because I'm not on my target zone yet. Here I am. So the mouse pointer also changes. This is one way to do it. Just again, earthquake line and the mouse pointer changes. That's the two things that I do here. The earthquake line is always there, no matter if I'm on the target zone or not, but the mouse pointer changes based on, drop zone, valid or invalid. Okay, fine. Nothing wrong with it. But obviously, there's so many other ways that makes this very arbitrary. Like, do I do it this way or any other way? Another way would be this one here. Same thing. I want just to drag and drop things here from the top to the bottom. Let's see how this is done this way. Okay. So this time, there's no earthquake line, but we flood the target zone. So as soon as the object is on the target zone, we flood the target zone in another color, saying, okay, now it's safe. And we also do manipulation of the mouse pointer. We just use different icons. So the symbols here are different. Here now we have a little cross, and we have the hand pointer based on whether I'm on the target zone or not. So the point here is that there's a lot of different ways you can do this, and they are all correct. There's obviously endless ways you can do this wrong, but these two examples here, they are both okay. They're both valid. There's no problem with them inherently. So which one would you choose? Well, I don't know. That's really up to the designers, what they think is best, the stakeholders, what they like best. But the message is you have a lot more variability as to how to design for rich interactivity, because it's been made so easy in the tools. The next question obviously then is, well, once I decided, how do I document rich interactions? Because, we used to do for the simple things like this, right? Where we say, well, we just write down upon user input, here's what happens, and then maybe I need some notes for some business rules or whatever, right? So I say on a single left mouse click or a single tap on a gesture-based system, I do something. On the right mouse click or a tap and hold, I do this. That is all good, but we see that there's really serious limitations of doing this, because trying descriptively in text to describe a very nuanced, rich interactivity is really cumbersome. I mean, you have to write a lot of text, and you can still not really convey the feeling of it, let alone that probably hardly anybody would ever read that spec. So this here, I think, is really almost not applicable anymore if it's about documenting rich interactivity. Bill Scott, who was this guy with the all the combinations of actors and states, had this suggestion of basically creating a matrix that shows, on these two dimensions, actors and states, and then you would gray out those that don't make any sense and would fill out those that do make sense. That's nice because it provides a nice overview, but the problem remains that how do you describe textually how an animation really works? It's really hard to describe that. So that leaves us with another way, and I'm not saying these are the three only ways, but these are the principal main ways that I see around here. Looking at the things that are published, it's basically live specking things. So with the motto being experiencing is better than reading something, it's just show it how it should work, do a proof of concept. You can use things like our new Indigo Studio product that we have, and that you can right now still download completely free from the internet. Just go on our website and you will see it on the top banner, which is a way to wireframe things, prototyping things, but also showing the transitions between screens. So the option here is to actually live specking things. Just show how it's supposed to work, and that is your spec. It's not a spec that consists of 300 pages of text. And it obviously does not prevent you from still writing, for example, key properties down. If you have a certain requirement or idea as to, again, the speed of the animation or the acceleration function, that you can also write down, but also show it, make it experienceable for those people who actually implement and build that feature in the software. The last bullet here about entertaining users. Again, for people that are mostly interested in hardcore line of business, transactional applications, may sound a little bit like eye candy, but a lot of systems out there, especially on the web, are not the line of business apps anymore, but are apps that to a large degree combine and fuse accomplishing hardcore goals with being entertaining. And so entertaining users, I think, has become much more important. And also for that, we can use rich interactivity in a real beneficial and constructive way. Why? Because we can help bridge processing times and loading times that drives people normally crazy. 5 years ago, there was still this rule out there, it probably still is, that if something takes more than an immediate feedback, you want to show this hourglass. Or today we have this little circular spinning wheel thing. So show something that spins just to tell the user, we need a little bit of time here, but hang on, we are still alive. And the rule was you do this for the first 2 seconds, and then if it's longer than 2 seconds, you want to show a progress bar or something. Well, the thing is, people get more and more impatient with systems. They don't want to wait a single millisecond anymore. And so how can we bridge longer times? Because sometimes it actually takes longer than 2 seconds or 10 seconds. Sometimes to render some million data points on a chart, this can take order of magnitude of half a minute or something. So an example here is from those companies that actually earn all their money by just providing loaders. All they do is loaders like these. You go somewhere, it takes some time to load. They give you a very nice, like pre-canned, pre-built animations that are really nice to look at. I mean, we're looking now at the 4th time of the same animation, and it's still kind of like, oh, interesting, oh, something spins. There's a really nice, pretty language to the titles here. I see a very nicely designed progression of percentages. Fine. So maybe this helps me to sit through a waiting time better than if I just see a spinning wheel, progress bar, or maybe nothing anyways. Or this one here, kayak.com, the travel booking website. Let's see, I want to book a flight from A to B, and I specify everything, click the search button, and now it takes, and it takes, and it takes, just pulling all this information, growing this list in the center that shows me all those flights. Okay, it's still building, still building. Okay, now it seems to be done. Everything is still moving. Okay, so you don't even exactly know how long things take. The only indication here is that it says, we are building, we are now at 1600 out of 1884 round trips shown. So it took quite a while, surprisingly a long time. People are very impatient. They really don't want to sit through all that. But to actually entertain them during this kind of wait time, what Kayak was doing is they showed this here, a boring progress bar that nobody cares about, but then this here, this kind of board here that we know from the airports, and oh wow, see how it animates, isn't that nice? Oh, it shows Iceland Express, oh, isn't that nice? It shows airfare.com, oh, this looks so nice. So just by looking at this and following this along, we pretty much again forget about this wait time that we have to now to sit through until all these results are pulled and displayed here in the middle. So it's also a very nice way to provide a good experience by just bridging time in a nice way. And again, you could argue this idea is actually not about eye candy. This is about really accomplishing something, because I want to book a flight. In this case, was it from New York City to Munich, Germany? That's what I want to do. So I actually am trying to do something meaningful. I am impatient. But even in those systems, you can find room to provide a nice experience with this nice and rich interactivity. And so that is basically what I wanted to share today. It's just a plea to use the power of rich interactivity features that our design and development tools bring in a constructive way, and not just for nice, sexy effects that are only providing eye candy, but are not really constructive. Constructive as in guiding the user, making things transparent, provide a pleasant experience during the journey that the user takes on your UI. So everything here revolves around the user, and rich interactivity helps us to provide direct manipulation, educate the user, entertain the user, and keeping the user on the same screen. So that is the end. And the message is usability and visual appeal equals user experience. We know this. This is kind of like the experience, the definition of user experience. But let's add rich interactivity to this and make it an awesome user experience. So we want to go beyond just, being very productive in usability and, looking great in visual appeal. We want to provide a real good journey. For that, we need rich interactivity. The result should be a really awesome contemporary user experience. I hope this was informative and also good in terms of practicability to you. Remember that, and this is the cartoon here, technology always advances and advances very, very, very fast. But we as the users of systems, we as humans, we are what we are, we stay the same. And so let's really try to design UIs for the users. Okay, I have a couple of minutes to answer questions. Let me just see, to bring back my little thing here. Okay. I see one here that says, is there a difference when to use these animations for websites, desktop applications, or the phone? I would say principally in what we try to accomplish for users, which is all these bullets here, it doesn't make that much of a difference. It's just how you make use of the different screen real estates. So, for example, on the phone, you don't have a lot of real estate to begin with. So then showing things that animates to some place that is still visible further decreases your available real estate, I think. So for that, it's maybe more meaningful for smartphones to make the transition between distinct pages more pleasant in an animated transitioning way, but you still probably end up with more pages that you would need on a larger form factor, if that makes sense. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's a nice one. Here's a question. The interactivity, is it beneficial in the same way for different levels of users? So do beginners benefit from rich interactivity the same way as experts? Well, in my view, I think the beginners will benefit more from it. Why? Because a lot of things that we try to do is educating the user, making things transparent. Now, if you are an expert user on the system that uses those rich interactive features, you actually need less and less guidance. You need less and less education. And so for that reason, I would think you don't want to be the animations a hindrance for the expert users. So, those systems that progressively show less and less guidance, less and less, call outs, less and less also animations. Why? Because those tend to get in the way for the experts. The experts, once they are experts, and by definition that means they are very good and proficient in using your UI, they will not need and probably also would less benefit from rich interactive features. But obviously on the other side of the spectrum, our beginners who have never worked with the application, they can greatly benefit from that. Because obviously they need the guidance, they need this education aspect. Okay, so always the question is, do we share our slides? We not only share the slide, we actually share the whole video. We share the whole webinar with you. Our marketing people will get busy after I finish here, and they will make that recording available to you. So you can expect a follow-up email in your inbox in a week. The worst case scenario would be 2 weeks, but I think it's within a week, and you will get a link to actually access this whole webinar again. So I wanted to thank you for participating, and obviously always check out our other webinars that we offer every single month. And other than that, have a great day and goodbye.